Welcome to Power Charting. I am your host, Bruce Fraser. We have got a great show for you today. I'm very excited. One of my favorite topics, swing trading. So we're going to do Swing Trading Workshop Part 2. Part 1 was on July 1st on Power Charting. Go check that out. But we need lots of help today because we have a very special mission, and that is we're going to be scanning for swing candidates. And for that, we have special guest, Johni Scan, John Colucci. John, thanks for being here.
Great to be here, Professor.
So we are going to start. John, I've got to show off your cool stuff because you do the Wyckoff market report. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. This is a scanning-based market report that looks for Wyckoff formations, top-down analysis. We start with the indices, sectors, move right into the structure of various stocks in the major indices. So very unique product out there, and got some very interesting candidates week to week.
It's been
we've got a special coming up too.
Oh, here, let's go to that. Tell us about it.
So Professor Bruce and I doing the scanning special to Wyckoff Analytics. Here's your sign information. We're doing the second stage Thursday, which would be yesterday when this airs, and that'll be session 2. We've got another one coming up live. You can get all of the information, slides, and recordings if you choose to partake. And we're going to show you a little bit today about how we use the scanning tools at StockCharts to find opportunity. Look less, see more. That's the key.
And this is a great scanning workshop because there's something in this for everybody from beginners to advanced. And so it's really there's a lot of good content. And the beauty of it is as you get better at scanning, you're going to be able to go back, circle back into this workshop and go into the more advanced concepts and further cement those into your scanning practice. So this is just it's just a wonderful session. So today we're going to look at a little bit about how I have go through the process of looking for candidates for swing trading. And again, go back to that July 1st episode, read these blogs on, and these are the schematics for accumulation. And honestly, I see these wonderful count potentials across these areas and trade those, especially when you're in a hostile market that we've been in recently. But also these larger structures, which are more campaign structures, are very, very important. So become real familiar with how these work. Here's a reaccumulation. These are very valuable too. As a matter of fact, I like these almost more than accumulations because you'll get reaccumulations all through an ongoing uptrend. And so these are wonderful for initiating or adding to positions as you go higher and higher. So read up about those also. And with that, let's take a minute and look at the S&P. It's kind of a swing trading idea anyway. And so this chart, as you know, we've been using this chart and just really adding to it as we go through time here. We've been in a steep downtrend, and you can see the channel there, a less steep, larger downtrend, which we threw under right here. And now we've turned back up. We've turned into the bigger channel. We've come out of the steeper channel, which is very interesting. And more importantly, this area right here is this count across this area. And John, we have fulfilled this count, 3,800, 3,900. And this count went through it to 3,650, but immediately came back up into the range of the count. Not uncommon when you're doing some kind of a climactic event, selling or buying climax. And so what do you think here, John?
Absolutely. And that is the area in which we're going to look for opportunity in our scan.
Well, and here you go, John. Look at this. Here's a swing trading count. And so this is one box method, 50-point scaling for the S&P. And look at this count, and it counts right up to the resistance area and the downtrend channel at 4150. So then, John, what do you see here? Let's say we could get up to this 4150 resistance area. What could happen next?
Well, typically I would expect some interaction with overhead resistance, maybe a small pullback, a backup, could even go down and test our lows in the 3,700 area. You never really know until you get there and you see what's going to happen, but you have to be open to the possibilities. And of course, we could get a breakout of that declining top channel line. That could happen too.
So lots of potential here, really interesting. It's interesting to see the market with a more positive tone here. And here is our first swing trading example. And when I go look for candidates, I'm basically looking at these massively large lists. So I'll look at the S&P 500 and I'll literally look at point figure charts on 500 stocks, maybe not all at once, but I'll just sort of get through them. And this is why we really want to talk to John here. And John has created a scan for us to help us with this process. Because John, when we look at this, I'll see a point and figure, say this chart on the right, and I'll see a count potential and I'll go, oh, this could be a good swing trading opportunity. And I'll take that count and I'll determine whether or not it has the right reward to risk characteristics. We talked about that in swing trading part 1. And here you can see that if we can get through this resistance area, we have a count potential 234, 236 with a larger count potentially at work here. John, when you look at these charts and you are thinking of a scanning process, what is going through your mind about how to codify this into a scan?
What I'm looking at in this particular instance, I'm looking at the dotted green line and the red line. And I'm using a concept of how much are these changing and are they changing for the better? So you could see how steeply they've come down really for the whole year. And now we're getting something that you might call a double bottom. We've flattened out on our 20-period average, and we've started to oscillate to a higher low on our 50-period moving average. So we're seeing a change in the rate of change on moving averages. And that's what my eye is keying on here, is the rate of change and how it's being affected by the movement of price.
Wonderful. And so then you can create scanning language that can replicate that visual observation.
Exactly. We could throw out, we can cast a net, relatively defined net to pull back formations of that nature. And I'm keying on the fact that Professor Bruce has gone through hundreds of charts and found these as points of interest. Then I can capitalize on that to develop the scan.
Very cool. And so one thing that I find very, very important and useful, I'll just mention this now, relative strength, which is right here, is I think it's important to have relative strength working in the favor in the direction of which way you're trading. So this is a long trade. IQV is showing good relative strength and has really since mid-May. It's making higher lows and getting above its moving average, where here, this would be a no-go for a long trade because the relative strength's negative. And then look how badly it's trading here. So it's not only declining with the market, but it's declining in a more severe way than the market. And you can really see that in the relative strength. So this looks like a distribution maybe for some kind of a swing trading down count. But here we're focused on this potential uptrend, and I see this visually, I want to trade it. Well, let's keep going. We have more candidates to look at. Here is a semiconductor, analog devices. And what's interesting about this chart is that you can see the relative strength starting to act quite well. Then it has a pullback, goes back below, and now it's back above the moving average. Well, look at what's going on here. Look at, there's a small count structure here, but there's a much bigger count potential. So maybe, and this is a spring here. So it springs this prior low right there, and then has a really interesting change of character and starts to go in an almost vertical rise up to the area of resistance. So I see that and I go, oh, this is so interesting. And then I go in and I see a count. Now I'm trading this stock at this time as a swing trading stock. But if it does the right thing, getting up to resistance here, then what I will be thinking about is a potential pullback and then a much bigger count potential, which this is all one box reversal point and figure. But I would then look at a 3 box for a larger count, something that's more of a large base potential. So John, what are you seeing when you look at a chart like this vertical chart?
Well, we had a lower low, a cluster of activity in June, early July that produced the lower low. And that typically is going to take this stock out of the parameters of what I would find. It's not that it isn't a great stock, it's just the scan syntax that I would use under these circumstances may not pick this one up. Let's take a look at your next candidate.
And that's really important. As a matter of fact, you do have a spring scan in the newsletter, which is interesting.
Absolutely.
And here are 2 swing counts for analog devices, and look at how beautifully picked up the minimum objective here. And now it's now fulfilling this objective area of the spring and test. And so we're going to watch this very closely to see whether or not it can come back deeply into the structure, or whether it just stalls here and then wants to work to resistance. Here is our next candidate, and this is KLA Corp. And John, what do you see?
Well, we do see a spring-like action, even a shakeout, you could call it, and a very, very stout response after a test. We have leaping bars, upward momentum, very, very good things to isolate in a scanning context. So quite positive there in terms of our ability to find that. And if you look at the PNF side, you can see that just big row of X's right on the right side of the chart. That's sure what we want to see.
And we call this in point and figure a catapult wall. And it's absolutely beautiful. And look at the persistency of it. We can take that swing count and, oh, we've actually thrown over the top of it. But as we saw with the ADI, is there's a much bigger count potential. So we would do a 3 box and consider that, but we still want to trade consistent with the swing trading potential here. Here's another swing trade right there that worked out really nicely. So, okay, so we've done a few of these, John. I want to give you plenty of time to talk about some of these other candidates that you found with your scanning. So let's go to your scan. Let's scan for swing opportunity, which I'm so excited about this. And tell us about the scan. It's so interesting.
So this scan uses moving averages as the principal vehicle for finding opportunity, and we're going to use the rate of change. So on the first line, we're looking for the rate of change for the 20-period moving average, 20 periods of the 20-period moving average, roughly a month of trading. And then we're going to ask that go behind that segment, go behind that 21-day period, and then let's look at the rate of change back then. So we're stepping back in time and doing a comparison between our rates of change, doing the same with the 50-period moving average. And in each instance, the current chunk of the 20-period rate of change for both of those moving averages is better than it was 21 days ago. So something is going to the upside. Now we're going to try to contain ourselves within prior overhead resistance because our current close has to be less than 95% of our 20 period high close starting one day ago. You need to really offset your close and your max min language, whole article on that, check that out. But we're going to leave ourselves some room within a structure, Wyckoffian structure, to find opportunity. We're going to sort these by our rate of change. So in this particular instance, the highest rate of change for 20 periods of the SMA 20 will be our first candidate, and then the lowest rate of change over that period of time will be our last candidate. Should we take a look at what we have when we run that scan?
Sure. And just to suggest that those of you that are interested in scanning, go into the StockCharts scanning engine and literally put this whole scan in there. That's the best way to learn how to do it, is just take this, screen capture it, type it in there, learn how to do it, make mistakes on syntax and everything, get all that worked out, and you're starting to learn scanning. So with that, let's start with the first one, which is Ollie's bargain outlet. And look at this beautiful structure. What are you seeing here, John?
Well, I traded Ollie, and Ollie was a frequent candidate in the newsletter. We have a nice structure really beginning in the year, kind of a rounded bottom, you might say a cup, and it broke out, backed up. I picked it up on the back up and wrote it up into the just before the current pullback. So I had a trailing stop in, hit the trailing stop, and I'm looking at it for opportunity in the future. But look generally at what we have. We have the 20 crossing the 50 to the upside. We have very positive readings on the OBV, and our relative strength is up too. So a lot of good things here. Now, Ollie was first on the list, and that means its rate of change for the 20 period moving average is the largest of all of the results. And in this case, we did get 16 results. Imagine looking at 16 rather than 500 charts. That's the opportunity you have with scanning. I know that's not preferred for Professor Bruce. He's got to be in all the charts, which is great. But for those of us who want to look less and see more, this is the way to do it, scanning. What do you see here, Professor?
Well, I won't spend too much time on the Wyckoff aspects, but it's a classic because here we have, after a series of tests on a descending scale here, we have a really nice rally into a sign of strength, then a pullback to a higher low, which is a last point of support, which is classic because that sets up the what we call phase D, phase E advance, which is the beginning of the new markup. So we would literally consider Ollie to be in the emergence of an important markup. So now we look back. So this is probably our swing trade here. And then we would, after say, pausing or pulling back, we don't know which or whether, we would look at the larger count opportunity here, especially with relative strength scaling up, making higher lows, because we know that institutions are looking for that. And the institutional footprint of their campaigning this stock is the very positive OBV, because only institutions can create that kind of positive OBV. So those are the essential things I'm seeing. And then we can put up the point and figure. We'll do this quickly because we want to see some more stocks. But here's the count potential. Look at the beautiful initial count up to as high as 55. That's resistance. It goes there, it pauses, but continues on. And now we say, well, there's a bigger potential. And so this bigger potential goes all the way up to 72. Well, it's gotten there also. But if we had, John had this in his newsletter and was able to campaign it very early on in the structure from other scanning. But and also we could then pick it up and do the point and figure on it, because we can see the whole structure is complete right back there long before the uptrend started. So it's such a good case study, let's call it. So now let's go to Moderna. So John, tell us about Moderna.
So Moderna, of course, has performed horribly over the past 3-4 quarters. You can see as high as almost 500, now down to, almost 100. Big drop. But look at what's happening now. We have early signs of structure. We've got a nice horizontal move. We have the 20-period moving average turn up. We're up to old resistance around the 180 area. Gentle pullback, hard to see volume because it gets compressed when there's huge volume days. But the idea is we're looking for count build, and we're doing that by looking at the rate by which our moving averages are changing. And you can see gentle slope down for the 20. Now it's up. 50's under that price label, but I'll wager that it's turning up too. So we have higher rates of change for our more recent moving averages. That's what we want to see.
And also you have the confirmation of OBV, very important. Point and figure, look at this fantastic structure. This is why I love to look at point figures, and I can look at a lot of them pretty quickly, which means I don't have a life. But other than to be here with our friends in power charting. But here's the count. And so you can see this would be the count that I would be focused on across the width of this. 1 box reversal, 2-point scaling. Always have to pay attention to that. 21 columns of count, but you got to multiply by the scale, which is 42 points. And that gives us a potential. Oh, we fulfilled that. 178 was the high of that. We've gone above it by 1 box. And look at the sharp pullback, and notice how Moderna is now literally range bound within the 2 counts. That happens all the time. And so this is really helpful because this suggests development of a reaccumulation. So we will keep an eye on that going forward. And then also, very interesting, is a much bigger count potential. And so this count potential gives us a range. I don't think I actually counted this, but I'll let you do that. And you can count all the way across here. So there's potentially a much bigger count at work here. And the next one we have is STAAR Surgical. Very interesting structure. Looks like a cyclic accumulation type event. Look at this beautiful distribution up here. Really beautiful. So John, we have about 3 minutes left. Give us a couple of key points here.
Well, if you look at the moving averages, you can see how the rate of change in a current 20 period is markedly different than 21 periods before that. Now we're turning up, we're in the proper order, we're seeing confirmation on OBV and relative strength. So this is the idea that your charts generated is, hey, let's look for very simple rate of change data on the moving averages themselves, shorter periods, 20 and 50. I think we're getting it.
Well, you know, John, I look at a chart like this and I go, this chart is begging me to count the point figure. It's just telling me, count me. And so here is the point and figure. And you can see here's a swing count. Look how beautifully that worked. So great potential, 57 up to 72. Nice swing opportunity there. But we see that they're and fulfilled, but all within the context of a larger accumulation structure, which we could see on the vertical. And now we just take a slightly larger count, 25 columns in 1 point, so 25 points, and that counts up to 88. And so here you can see, and then we fulfilled the minimum count of 75, but look at how beautifully it's just hinging into what appears to be another potential move up to that 88 level, which is essential resistance. And so that is part of our much bigger accumulation event. So really, really interesting. And then finally, let me put this chart up just so you can see how this is done. We converted this to a 3-box reversal. So you see more data, you count the columns, you multiply by 3, and then by the scale to get your count potential. And you can see this is a really big opportunity here. Okay, so what we're going to do, John, because we only have a couple of minutes left, is let's just do one more. And this is Selective Insurance. It's kind of a wild, looks like reaccumulation type structure here. And so sign of strength, pull back to support, tempting to rally, but pretty deep pullback here. Relative strength is trying to turn up. And here is the point and figure. Look at that beautiful count that you can see really clearly on the point and figure. Put in your downtrend lines, got above it and really started to take off. And there's our count. And so there we go. We're out of time. Thank you, John, for being here. And thank you for that wonderful scan.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.